Hello, welcome back to the Instech podcast. Zoya here, and this week Robin is joined by Liselotte Munk, CEO of Fadata. Liselotte returns to the podcast to share how one of Europe's leading insurance software providers is actually putting AI into practice, not just talking about it. From using AI to speed up and improve software development to reshaping how policy admin systems are implemented, this is a grounded, real-world look at what's changing behind the scenes. Robin and Liselotte explore whether AI is a threat or an opportunity for core insurance platforms, how business models and pricing might evolve, and what happens to skills, roles, and careers as coding becomes more automated. If you've been wondering what AI really means for insurance software vendors and what CIOs and COOs should be focusing on right now, this is a thoughtful, practical conversation you won't want to miss.
Well, I'm delighted to welcome back to the Instech podcast an old friend of ours in Liselotte Munk, who is the CEO of Fadata. Liselotte, welcome back.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me, and Happy New Year.
So how was 2025 for Fadata?
I think we had a great year with the political turmoil that we are all living in, with the insecurity that are increasing. I think we ended the year financially very well, with further engagement with the existing clients and also for some of our clients for new territories. It ended up being a very good year again for Fadata, with growth on top line and bottom line.
Well done. I've been keen to get you back because we talked endlessly through 2025 about AI, agentic AI, how it's going to change the future of insurance, particularly on the underwriting side of things. But we never really spoke to any people who run software businesses as to how AI was going to change their world. How are you using it? How is it influencing the way you run the business at Fadata?
1.5 years ago, we discussed the internal AI strategy. And then we set the strategy, and now we are executing on it. And I think we are in two directions looking at it. That is, how can we improve our software development, both in speed and quality, by using AI tools? That is one area where we already in 2025 saw some improvements in some areas. And the other area we are looking into is in the configuration part, which means an impact actually also our clients when we're doing the implementation. We are more and more using AI tools to generate the requirements and match that into our configuration layer. So these are the two main drivers. And beneath that, of course, for documentation and testing and stuff like that, we are also utilizing AI tools.
In long term, do you worry about it? Do you see it as a threat, or do you think it's going to be good for businesses like yours?
In long term, I'm sure it's an opportunity also for us, because the faster and better quality implementation we can get out in the market will get bigger, and the risk of adapting new technologies and platforms will decrease. So I think in a long perspective, it's definitely an opportunity for us as a software vendor.
If you're listening to this and you're saying, oh, Liselotte would say that, wouldn't she? Who's going to need a policy admin system in the brave new world where we can build all kinds of agents and capabilities that fulfill a lot of the back office functions? What do you say to those who say, I'm really looking forward to the day when I don't have to buy an expensive policy admin system anymore?
Mm-hmm. I think the expensiveness is something we're working at, so it will be cheaper by us using AI. But I still think to have a joint development with other clients, because the complexity are big, even if you're talking AI, we still see compliance, rules, regulations, protection and security. And that is very expensive investments, even though using AI. So I think in general, the core platform that are standardized will also be the way forward. But we share the objective of bringing down cost to bring new technology and platform on board.
I don't know why I'm being so cynical at the start of 2026, but I sort of say to myself, a business like yours rightly charges based on the time and expense of developing capability for your customers. Then with an AI toolset, you can do that much faster and it ends up being much cheaper and the customer's absolutely delighted. But your revenue goes down. like everyone else, you've got partly license fees and you've got partly professional services fees. Your professional services fees are going to go down long term, aren't they? How do you cope with something like that?
Per client, you're right. We will see that the service fees will go down, but I'm also sure that the value getting out of a more AI-driven back office with more and more out of the box, that will change the whole pricing element. And I don't think it will, from a pricing point of view and licensing point of view, go down. It will actually be more and more we have to cover, but the implementation time horizon will go down. And that is driving investment cost upfront. And I'm sure we will see that. And that does change also our model, but we only welcome that. And I think in the longer perspective, it will open up new markets, more frequent exchange of solutions, maybe even more use of it. So I think there is also a lot of opportunities here for both the insurer and us to generate revenue. But we share, as I said before, we share the goal of taking the implementation, the first implementation, and onboard that faster, which also mean lower cost and lower revenue from our side.
Yeah, that has to be good for everybody. You can start earning revenue quicker. What puts so many people off adopting new admin systems, the upfront transformation and associated costs? Presumably, this adoption of AI also subtly changes the nature of your workforce or how you will resource your company going forward. You need a slightly different skill set and a combination of people and tooling. What's the thinking there?
Yeah, for sure. It changed when everybody can do the coding. That will, of course, change the skill set required for a company like Fadata. And I think we will see that our jobs will be more a combination with technology and business. So you need to understand both going forward. In a perspective of that, I think the jobs will be much more interesting because you are working with clients, you're working with partners, and you're not just coding because the just coding will eventually be fully AI driven. And beneath that, it will be more thinking strategically, it will be more thinking architecturally, scalability, security, all these areas will be left for human resources in our organization to think about that, set the direction, and execute on the strategy. So I think in general, you're right, it will be a huge transformation, our skill set. I think we are going in a direction for generating much more interesting jobs for individuals.
I agree. I think it's a really good point. You would have the same problem as me. You'll sit down next to somebody at a dinner party and you say, "What do you do?" "I work in insurance technology," and they've gone to sleep before you've finished your first sentence. The idea that we can actually talk about something quite interesting or be able to promote our world as something that is genuinely intriguing and positive place to work would help a lot. But you talk about coding being largely delivered by bots or by AI, which I share. That also means clients will believe that they have an increased capability to do more their side. But there'll be a subtle shift between what you do and what they do. Is that a danger? Do you think that people are going to be slightly overconfident about what they can do their end, which might cause problems in the long term?
I don't think so. In a more generic perspective, there we can of course not avoid that somebody will go that direction. But I think the generic trend here will be that the core insurance, which is very generic, the processes, the underwriting processes, the claims processes, they are very, very much harmonized. The whole regulation are harmonized more and more. It goes from local to Europe zone, in our case, where we are talking about Europe. So there will be a lot that are generically for all insurer. And I think that's exactly what our platform can do. Where I think it will be very interesting, that is where this platform meets the aspirations that the insurer have for making a difference for their clients and using AI tools to do that. And I think that's a space where, you can say the individual insurer has to individualize their strategy on how they want to make a difference for their clients. And I think that is going to be very interesting to participate in that dialogue with our clients. So I think it's about us providing as much out of the box, an open platform that can easily integrate and be utilizing those tools that our clients are using.
I like that analysis. But to continue to explore that, we did an event at the end of last year about agentic AI, and we had a lot of big European insurers, but everybody admitted to being at an exploratory stage, and there was a lot of talk about what people could do and less talk about what people were actually doing at a kind of institutionalized level. So based on what you've seen so far, have you seen any sort of trends you can identify as to where your insurer customers are focusing their investment? What are they investing in order to be able to improve the delivery of the insurance that they provide?
First and foremost, where we have been involved in dialogue, it is on a very explorative stage. It's more piloting, like try and error, does that work, and so on, rather than a well-defined strategy that can just be taken and executed in the organization. And for that reason, it is also on few hands, even in the bigger organization. It is few hands that are looking into it, involving partners, individuals in defining what can be done. And I think they are very much into discussing it in the perspective on how can we generate more value to our clients. And that is in pricing, in services, in claims handling, maybe even in how to collect money. Can we provide more in that sense and so on? And I think in Eurozone, at least with the GDPR and others, there is also cautious not to anything that can jeopardize with the regulations we have on this area. So these are, as I see it, and so for internal use, for progressing processes, huge amount of claims or huge amount of policy issuing or whatever, these things are easier for them also to use. And that's where we come in play because that's what we can do for them.
One of the things I took away from our Agentic AI conference was that the big continental European insurers are well ahead in their thinking and adoption, particularly in the way they structure themselves. They are investing and they're working out what to invest in, and they've put in place people, money, an organizational structure that enables them to do them. Whereas I think we're really much earlier in the process here in the London market. And what I would say, and I'm interested in your comments on it, the London market is seeing it much more as a way to underwrite better. So it's looking mostly at complicated risks. It's doing that on the basis of huge reports that can be easily summarized. And it's, to your point about jobs that are less boring, it's doing the boring things for underwriters to enable them to get more time to properly assess and price a risk. Whereas I've observed that in Europe, where the companies are absolutely vast, and as you say, they have so many claims, there are extraordinary amounts of savings that can be made in the proper adoption because of the scale. Have you seen any kind of regional variances in how people are investing? You've got a pan-European footprint. Anything to observe?
Actually, in this case, no. It might seem that the European countries are a little bit more structured in their approach. But I think it is something, as I said, a very explorative stage for all of them. They are investing, they are organizing, but it's still not clear to everybody exactly what to do. But you're right, in the underwriting and in the scale business, this is also where they have their focus. That is in the complex processes to get processed very fast and with high efficiency. These are the two areas that are explored. And then as a third leg is, can we engage our client differently by providing some tailored services towards them that actually generates more loyalty towards the clients?
What I did observe from our day on agentic AI was how much I wouldn't want to be a CIO of a big insurance company right now. It's obvious that the potential for these technologies is game changing. It's obvious that there are enormous risks involved. There's quite a lot of pressure on you to make use of them and enable the savings and benefits that come from adoption, but you've got to do it in a very sort of careful and considered way. And I thought to myself, I really wouldn't want to be the person having to make all these decisions. On that note, what kind of advice would you give to a CIO, COO of the companies that you work for? What do you think they have to be doing now in 2026?
It's a great question. And I think before I answer it concretely, I would say that general knowledge about technology in the insurance companies' management teams are increasingly higher than it was 20 years ago when we were discussing adapting standard solutions. We see now CEOs, COOs, and so on also in technology discussions. And I think that is comforting the CIOs and the CTOs because actually they are in a team where people understand this is explorative, it comes with risk. The first shot might not be hitting bullseyes and so on. I think the general understanding of that is much bigger than it was 20 years ago. That said, the bigger topic on the strategic agenda for the insurer is how can we actually improve our core business with AI? Because starting with something where both the business model, the technology is new, and also maybe even the industry is new, might not be the right approach. Even though there could be quick wins, I would definitely, if I was in their shoes, I would start by how can I help our business by providing more efficiency, higher transparency, and maybe also higher quality whenever we have technology shift coming in.
Yeah, it's not like insurance has a good reputation for delivering a quality product at a good price. If we can close that gap between customers' expectations and what we actually deliver, everybody is a winner. Liselotte, thank you for joining me. That's fascinating. We speak so much to claims people and underwriting people about how their world's going to change. We don't get access to people like you to talk about software business from time to time. So I really enjoyed that. Thank you for sharing your time. Good luck for Fadata in 2026.
Thank you so much, Robin. Thank you for having me today.
Well, if you've made it this far, then I'm pretty sure you found that as interesting as I did. The Instech podcast comes out every Sunday morning, where we spotlight the latest news, leading voices, and freshest updates across insurance that you need to know about. If you would like to take part in these conversations, head to www.instech.co to find out how you can join our network and be a part of the insurance intelligence for the curious.